Do we have a big project today? Espresso, tape measure, pencil, eraser, Edward Tufte graph paper. What are we doing? We are building a bookcase, my first ever bookcase, on that wall for these books. Now, I've spent so much time working on the maths. I use maths plural because I was on a bunch of woodworking threads and a handful of them were in England and they were all calling it maths, and I thought that was pretty accurate. So what we have here is all the thought that goes into the design, the fabrication, the materials that you're going to need, the hardware that we're going to need, the measurements, the placements. Why I love building things, even though it takes a ton of time, it's extremely difficult, and I know I'm going to be completely frustrated. I'm going to say to myself, why the hell did I take this project on? Why I still like to do it. In no other way do I come into the same interaction of like math, using my hands, craftsmanship, and planning and strategy like you do when you're building something. Thinking through the spacing of the shelves, the load that the shelves can take, thinking through the final design of, are they going to be a good enough picture frame or art frame for the art that's going to go in them, these books. Now to go to Home Depot, know where all the different pieces and things are. What tools do I need? What tools do I have? What stain color should we get? I know the wood pieces and sizes that I need, but will that fit on a 4 foot by 8 foot? And can you make those actual cuts at Home Depot and tell the guy exactly what you need? So there's all these things that go into it. And the more forethought in math and working through that you can do on paper, I'm hoping it's going to bode well for a swifter execution. So the overall design right here, you can see I kind of got that slant to it. We got a little slant up there. And we're going to go 7 shelves here. There's 8 spaces, but 7 shelves. It's going to take up that whole wall. We've got our supplies here that we're going to need to purchase. We've got some edge banding, which means the stuff that we have to put on the outside of the plywood to make it look nicer. Here are the cuts that we're going to need in terms of the plywood. Over here, I was trying to figure out how to fit these things sort of together. Here we were doing the math in terms of what's the actual spacing going to look like. I know we have 7 shelves, but there's actually 8 spaces. How do you figure out the exact height that each one of those are supposed to be? Here we were thinking about the baseboard and the trim. You can see here's the baseboard with the measurements there, and we have to build this little platform there. This is just a quick visual sketch of what I think it will look like. Obviously there's more shelves than that, but that just kind of helped me see at the top here. Okay, we're gonna go all the way across at the top, and in terms of, you know, the height of this thing, I'm thinking through these pocket holes. So these are going to be pocket holes right here, which will be a new thing that I'm going to have to try to figure out. And then over here, we're looking at, hey, how do you rip these things in the right dimensions, and can you get it done with a couple pieces of plywood? I'll be able to build most of the frame through this one. And then I started seeing, okay, that's, you know, 48 by 96. I tried to do the shelving that way, but I realized, you know, I wouldn't be able to get them all. And then I flipped it on its side and I'm like, oh, actually, holy smokes, I need 14 shelves, but I will be able to get it this way. So there's an interesting thing right there. The same piece of wood, I can't get it that way, but I can get it that way. And by just kind of rotating it, you kind of figure those things out. So we also have to talk about your Home Depot outfit. I've got a jean shirt on here. I've got some Carhartt pants. I've got a belt because I'm gonna have to clip on my tape measurer. And you wanna look functional, but I also kind of want to like dress up because this is a big momentous moment, and I don't just want to wear like athletic clothes, right? Are you going to wear athletic clothes if you go snowboarding? No, you're going to wear your snowboard gear, right? It's the same thing when you go to Home Depot. Going into Home Depot with a list this big and a project this size, that's its own other entity too. You got to be prepared. You can't get distracted because there's a lot of cool toys and doodads and stuff like that, but I just got to follow my plan. I put in the work. I got to get in there, get the big cart because I'm gonna have some big cuts. One decision I'm gonna have to make is, do I have them cut it? Do I have them rip it? Is the better vernacular. Or do I buy a circular saw and a straight edge so I can rip it myself? So right now we are drilling pocket holes. We've got the Craig pocket hole drill guide. We set it up. We use our clamps, the C clamps. We clamp the wood down and then we send it in. and then that's going to be the solid joint that we're going to use to connect the top and bottom pieces, and then probably the shelves as well. First thing, secure it. Now we got to clamp this thing down and then use the drill bit, pop in, pop out, and then you'll have these perfect little pocket holes. It's taking way longer than I anticipated. It'll probably take double the time if we get all the way through. We ran into a predicament. The middle one is short. I'm not sure how I missed that, but I'm looking at my drawings and it's definitely apparent that the drawings were correct. I just made an incorrect assumption. So I think a learning lesson there is always double check your maths. Interestingly, I think we've got a fix. Let me show you. Send those in, and then I'll use this to connect. So you basically extend that piece of wood. I'll go right down the middle. We've got a new day. I've got a new shirt on, same hat, same carpenter pencil that I learned to sharpen with a knife. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna install some shelves. I got a special jig this morning from Home Depot. I had to go back. That's my second trip for the record. A special tool to be able to set those where the shelves are going to go. So you know, like on IKEA, when you just kind of like put the little things in and you set it on top, that's what we're gonna do instead of permanently setting the shelves in. I was actually talking with a neighbor who did some woodworking in the past, randomly met him just based on him seeing the woodworking stuff, and he was fired up about it, so we started talking. Anyways, after sleeping on it for a night, I think that's the way to do it. So I got the maths figured out. I know where these are gonna go. I also have a ring light, which is a dead giveaway that I'm an LA-based project person or contractor. What I love about building, it's a sandbox for practicing a magnificent skill, which is if it doesn't go according to plan, can you keep your cool and composure and find a way to get the job done? I think sometimes you could think, well, you should just get it right the first time and do the planning correct ahead of time, which I think is true. And it's probably as you get better and better at this, that's probably the case where it's executed to plan. However, maybe it's because I'm an amateur woodworker or I just keep taking on burlier projects. I learn something new every time. Something inevitably goes wrong or not according to plan, and it's just like, okay, how do I fix this? What's the easiest solution? What's the simplest thing that I could do to keep, the integrity of the original plan without having to either buy more stuff or do more stuff or re-engineer it? Building stuff is the process. It's very meditative in the sense of you're just focused on the thing that you're doing, and it's very fulfilling because this idea is now taking physical shape, and here you are the one sort of building it, but you're very focused in the moment and not thinking about other things because you need a full attention to be able to pull it off. All of those components make building stuff a pretty special learning experience. It's like the ultimate dojo for learning. So all the tools in this jig are right back here. This is the bit with a stop. You send it in and it stops it right there. And it's just all kind of organized back here. Amazing. The utility and organization of these things, similarly with camping when you're backpacking or backpacking gear, it's really amazing engineering. You know how they talk about your subconscious and working on something for a really long time and then taking a break and letting your subconscious figure that out, the rest of it, when you wake up in the morning, got a solution that you didn't know that was possible? Well, that happened to me with this project last night because I'm thinking about putting some sort of pocket joint in the middle here to firm up the frame. But then I thought to myself, if I put it into a stud on the wall, isn't that going to make the firmed up thing that I'm looking for? So in isolation, this is, a little too flimsy back and forth because it's so tall with no middle support. But if I do put it into the wall, which is the plan, so it doesn't tip this way and it's just more solid, that might firm up the whole frame And so instead of having to do an additional piece right here with another pocket hole, which is a variable where something could go wrong, I could just have a simpler solution of putting an L bracket at the top or maybe even the middle into the stud, and it'll be like a less intrusive solution. A book on coming up with ideas. I forget what it's called, but I'll figure it out and I'll like link to it or something. It talks about just that, where you work really hard on something, you think about it for a really long time, and then you drop it and you come back to it later. And in that processing period, your subconscious brings forth solutions and things that you didn't even know were possible. And in that book, The Art of Learning, he says the same thing about the power of the unconscious. Pardon me, subconscious, which maybe is elements of the unconscious. You don't want to be unconscious, though. That's without conscience. Not good. Spoon shelf supports, 1/4 inch. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know, man, but then you look at all these shelves, professional shelves that are built, when you take a peek and you look in your kitchen and stuff, like all those pots and pans and plates or stuff, oftentimes are being just held by that and like a 3/4 inch ply or piece of wood. And also, pro tip, the thicker the shelf, the stronger the shelf. Garbage man's here, maybe give him a little hello. You gotta give the garbage man some love, man. Those guys work hard. They're always super nice too when you wave to him. This guy's sick, he's got a cap on with a mustache. And I mean, while we're talking about it, what an amazing innovation and invention the garbage truck is. Like, dude, the engineering behind this thing, it's so sick. Great paint job from Waste Management too. They spent some time branding it. A lot of thought went into this thing. This is not going to be level. It's slightly off. And at first I was discouraged until I put the level on the ground, and the ground has a slight slope to it, right? So then I was like, wow, it's actually the ground. But if you didn't check that, you would never know. And then you would think the whole project is off. So it's like all those variables and learning lessons. Like, what kind of learning lesson is that? Like, okay, maybe it's not the thing that you're doing, maybe it's the thing that you're building it on. Building stuff in your garage is also a highly social event. Like, all your neighbors will kind of pop through, and everybody likes seeing stuff get built, you know? Must just be a human thing. Like, oh, what are you building? Hey, check this out. And oh, wow, that's really cool. And they sit there in your garage, you chat for a bit, and then they go on about their day. But I've met 2 new neighbors that I've never talked to. This just brought them in, and then a bunch of just folks I usually talk to popping in, having good conversations. So it's just another great way to build community. Building bookshelves, building community, building a better future for America. Vote Romness. Feel a little sad that I'm about to drill the last shelf hole, because it's been such an adventure. When I set out, I didn't know if I was going to do this. I didn't know if it was going to be even. And now that it's here and it's working, it's kind of like, 1, I'm excited and I'm happy. But 2, it's like, well, damn, man, like the adventure's coming to an end. Hey.
I'm gonna break these down out here.
You're gonna break those down out here?
Did the trash man come already?
Yeah, he's just there, Kim.
Yeah.
Little do you know.
Cool. Way to go.
We are adding edge banding. What is edge banding? Well, this right here is a veneer. And what you do is got adhesive on the backside, and you put it on the edge of the plywood. Here's an example. This is kind of ugly, so you put the edge banding here, and then you use an iron, and then you kind of sand it down so you've got this really nice smooth edge. So then that way, when it's facing out of the bookshelf, it even looks cleaner. Clamp it on nice and tight. Now we cut the banding. Super simple, actually. Gotta leave a little edge so when you snap it, you kind of trim it and sand it. And then you take your hot iron, you do 1 pass just to sort of set it in the beginning. Run it back another pass. Looks good. Then you take a block, just get a little extra pressure for the homies. Trim it off, and it's a little messy, but you're gonna sand it and then it gets nice and smooth. This is before. After. We got 6 more to go. Then probably have to disassemble this, put the edge banding on the long sides and on the tops. and then we stain it. At every stage in this, something's gone wrong or challenged me in a way, but you overcome. I've been flipping between Mozart and Alan Watts. If it's kind of monotonous work, I can do the Alan Watts because then I can actually like listen to what he's saying. But if I gotta think, then I gotta turn it off and just go music. So this is a great example of why we train resting postures, down on knees, sitting here, so you can get into this position. And I'm not gonna lie, after practice one at Allegiant, it's not the easiest thing to do here, but it's working. We've entered the staining phase. This is the last phase. Got my workbench set up, which is kind of phase one, is like always figuring out what your workbench is going to look like. And so I sent some screws up from the bottom, and then that way when I set the wood on top, I'm going to be able to flip it and stain both sides, then I'll set it down. So basically the process is wipe it all, make sure it's clean as sawdust, wipe the stain on with a towel, wipe it off with another one before it dries, set it to the side, on to the next one. Everything will dry in a couple hours. Hopefully we'll all be stained out. Maybe we'll listen to some Stained as well, the great 90s rock band. That, my friends, was a doozy. Wouldn't have gotten through without Gordon Lightfoot and the Epic playlist. I listened to some pretty sweet John Coltrane stuff too that got a little too heavy and deep, but it was good while I was there. Switched to Gordon, talking about railroading, stuff like that. Really made sense. The stain, I mean, I think it looks so good. Obviously, I'm biased. When the leather books are in there with the gilded pages and the gold popping, I also learned that you need to not throw those cloths away because spontaneous combustion can happen if you don't unfold the cloths. Like the oil or the oil heats, and if you just like throw it in a trash bin, you could have like a fire. So shout out to YouTube and all those handymen that taught me that. We have made it to the final phase, installation. It's going on that wall. I'm gonna enlist my dad's help here. Swing it around. Let me just get over here.
No, we're good.
Not square though.
But it'll square up.
Just set it on the platform.
All you gotta do is probably put an L bracket there, 3 down here, and 3 up above it.
The bookcase is going to sit on the platform, but we have to have that stain dried first before we can install the rest of it. So that was a good lesson. I should have just stained everything in the moment, but for whatever reason, I was like, I can do this other one later. Horrible idea. There was a chain of events that slowed everything down. So next time I'll know to stain everything at once. Looking forward to getting this house back in shape, these books into their proper home and place. And so hopefully by the end of today, we're going to have this bookshelf totally done. Wow,
Pretty.
that's sick.
Yeah, baby.
Dang, that looks really good.